To make these fun to make projects, you'll need some chipboard. I've used Cricut 2mm heavy chipboard. You're also going to need a Cricut Maker or a Cricut Maker 3, a knife blade, a purple strong grip mat and some masking tape. You'll need some other materials once you want to add the finishing touches, and I'll get into those later on in the video. If it's the first time using your knife blade, you'll need to calibrate it. Design Space will prompt you to do this when you do your first cut, or you can go to calibration in the menu on the home page. This calibration process is nice and easy. You just need to insert your knife blade and put a piece of A4 printer paper onto the top left of a blue mat, then press continue in Design Space and load your mat and press start. Once your machine has finished the cuts, Design Space will ask you to have a look at the lines and see which one has cut the neatest or most accurate. For me, this was the 5th line down. Pop that number into Design Space and then you're all set. And now you're going to need a design. There are several projects in Design Space for chipboard, or you can make your own, or if you like any of mine, either as they are or to customise, I'll leave the links in the description for you. Okay, before we get into the projects, I just want to share some important information that I've learnt about cutting chipboard. Cricut chipboard comes in 11" by 11" sheets. This is so that you can put it on the mat in the top left corner and leave the right side clear so that you can push the star wheels completely to the right, because otherwise they would make marks on your chipboard and ruin your project. You'll need to use masking tape or painter's tape to make sure your chipboard is securely attached to your mat. You don't want it to wiggle around because it will ruin your project. Using a brayer, if you have one, will help too. I did a small test cut to make sure everything was in order, and I learnt a couple of things. Design Space said that it was going to take 24 passes to cut through my project. Actually, it didn't need 24 passes to cut through this project, which I discovered when I took it off the mat and found it had cut into my mat quite deeply. So I learnt to pause the machine when it was about 3/4 of the way through and use a weeding tool to tease a cut piece up to see if it was cut through. I found it was best to pause at the end of a pass when there's a slight pause and the knife blade lifts up. It's only for a second or two, so you will need to be quick. If it's cut through, you can unload. If not, press start to resume the cut. If cutting more than one piece at a time like me here, you'll want to check each of the pieces as they don't necessarily need the same number of passes. You may have to complete all 24 passes anyway. I also tested the knife blade on a fairly intricate cut, and as you can see, it came out beautifully. Cricut recommends keeping lines to the width of a pencil or more, and inner spaces and shapes at least 3/4 inch wide. However, as you can see here, you can push those boundaries a little, but not too much, or you might end up with this happening. If you have any big bits of debris left on your mat, you can pick them off with tweezers. Then you can clean the rest off with soapy water and a brush or a baby wipe. One final tip before we get into the projects. If you want to cut more than one project, you could copy them all onto the same canvas and place them next to each other like this, and then hit attach so that they keep their positions on the Make It page. Design Space would space them further apart so you can save some material this way. Okay, I've got 7 fun to make small chipboard projects for you. Here are 5 of them. I've also got 2 more, but the cutouts aren't here. You'll see them soon. I've already painted the giraffe with Gesso primer paint, which works well on porous surfaces like chipboard. Let's move on to project 1, a super luxury gift tag. I decided to paint the cutout with gorgeous copper acrylic paint, which I got from Hobbycraft. This is a lovely, simple but effective project to make. Then I cut out the tag again using 300 GSM thick white card and glued it to the back. This would be fab to add to gift wrapping for a wedding or anniversary gift. It could be painted in a matching colour, silver, gold, ruby, or the colour of a bridesmaid's dress. My second project is a chipboard giraffe, which I've personalised with a name. This giraffe image is a tweaked version of the one created by Digital Gems, which you can find in Design Space. After adding a name, I added an offset of 0.25. This did leave a hole underneath the name, so I used the contour tool to get rid of it because it was far too small for the knife blade to cope with. So this left me with a solid background. After cutting out all the pieces, I gave the giraffe 2 coats of Gesso white primer. I cut my giraffe pieces out of HTV, and then I used my new mini easy press, super excited about that, to apply the vinyl to the background. I used some heat resistant tape to help secure the carrier sheet to the giraffe to make sure it didn't move around. And then I applied my layers in the usual way, keeping my mini press moving and pressing lightly. I did it in short bursts of about 5 seconds in small areas until I'd covered the whole giraffe. I did this for each layer until I got to the final layer, and then I did it for about 10 seconds in each area. It's best to wait for a cool peel for each layer. To avoid any damage to the door, I found some no damage command strips to use. You need 2 strips, one to adhere to the back of the giraffe and one to the door, and then they velcro together. And when you want to remove it, you should be able to pull it off without damaging the door. Project 3 is a sign to hang in my hubby's study. I saw something similar and thought it was really funny and tweaked it to suit him. I used permanent vinyl applied with clear book adhesive cover straight onto the chipboard. The clear book adhesive cover works really well with most vinyls, but not so well with the glitter vinyl. I did need to take care while I was weeding not to lose any of the letters, so I went slowly and cut off the excess vinyl as I went, making sure I hadn't lost any of the letters. I did add a tiny little offset to the smaller fonts because I'm pretty sure I would have lost some letters while weeding otherwise. Fortunately, my hubby laughed when I gave him this. Project 4 is a post-it note fridge magnet. I applied black removable vinyl and a holographic vinyl decal to the front of the chipboard piece and glued a 0.4mm piece of magnetic sheet to the back. To glue the magnetic sheet to the back of the chipboard, I've used Art Glitter Dries Clear glue. It's a fast drying glue and it works really well with non-porous surfaces like magnetic sheet and chipboard. To cut the magnetic sheet with the Cricut, I used the material setting magnetic sheet 0.5mm with the deep point blade, but you can also use the printable magnetic sheet setting and use the fine point blade. You will need to add more pressure and do 2 passes though. And then lastly, you just want to glue a small post-it note pad to the front and stick it to your fridge. That's going to be useful. Project number 5 is a door hanger for my nephew, who's a content creator and records a lot of videos. As with the giraffe, I painted it with white gesso primer and then I applied my design using adhesive foil and permanent vinyl to the front. Project 6 is a classy nameplate, also for my nephew. As with the giraffe, I painted the chipboard piece using white gesso primer and then I applied my design using HTV with the Easy Press Mini. But you could also use a household iron, as I have done in the past. And for my 7th and final project, I made some super cute little fridge magnets. I applied Cricut Permanent Vinyl and HTV Ront Glitter Vinyl designs onto the chipboard circles and glued magnetic sheet circles of the same size to the back of each magnet. How adorable are these? I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Bye bye for now.